I just want to let you know that I'll be recording the call today, or the Zoom today. Looks like we have a number of people that have logged on. And I guess as we go on, more people will be logging in, so I'll be letting them in, so don't mind that distraction there. So first, I want to thank all of you for your time here today. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Gauthier. I work with the Division of Extension, Menominee County Nation, and my office is located at the Community Technology Center at the CMN campus. But right now, like the rest of you, I am working from home and finding creative ways to share information and connect with the community. I want to acknowledge Sharon Waka for sending me an email and letting me know what some of the needs were in the community. It took me a little time to learn Zoom and to set this up, but I want to thank her for sharing the seed with me and getting this out to the community. So thank you for that, Sharon. I'm so glad that people are interested in gardening. I think that this pandemic has brought out some really good things in our community, and one of those is gardening. I was talking with someone about this project and this idea, and was thinking, like, wouldn't it be wonderful to drive through the reservation and see everyone at home with backyard gardens or some pottery gardens, just really connecting to our Indigenous ways of being. So really excited to see what some of the good things that come out of this pandemic. There's a lot of really good reasons to garden. The obvious ones are like the health and nutrition. With gardening, we're being physically active. We're getting some sun. We're eating some really good fruits and vegetables that we've grown on our own. But also we're connecting with the environment, and we're building relationships with plants. So there's some really good things. Some other things that we might not think about with gardening are like the social and emotional benefits. It's a time for us to be together and to spend time with our family. We're working together, we're collaborating. Someone might be picking weeds, someone might water another day. There's just a lot of ways that we can work together and collaborate through gardening. We're also doing a lot of learning by gardening too, just by being outside and observing. If you're like me, when you plant your plants or plant your seeds, they become like your little babies, and you go check on them every day and observe and see if they've grown, which direction they're leaning. So there's some observations and relationship building there with your plants. Also, it's about sharing and reciprocity, and this is a Menominee value that we have. We share our produce with our neighbors and our family. And we're connecting to our Menominee values. So those are some really good things about gardening that maybe we don't think about when we plant those first seeds. I did take some time to put together a PowerPoint. I'll try to make it as engaging as possible and to share as much information as I can with you. I'll leave some space at the end for a chat. So if you have any questions, you can see at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat option, and you can type your questions in. I'll try my best to answer. I don't know everything about gardening, but I have a little bit of experience. I've been gardening for a number of years, spent some time with my grandmother gardening, went through the Master Gardener's training course, and then I've done some work with the college. So collectively, with everyone that I've spent time with, learned a lot, and every growing season is a new learning opportunity and experience. So I'll use what I know and what's been shared with me to try to help you out wherever I can. So on to the PowerPoint. Yay, PowerPoints. And can everybody see this? Hoping that you can. So I wanted to start at the beginning with selecting seeds and starting plants at home. In your registration, I asked what the interests were around gardening, and here, hold on, someone is waiting to get in. Okay, here were some of the responses. So I did put an asterisk by a number of similar responses. There are a lot of people that were interested in gardening because of food security, food access, for budgetary reasons, and because of the pandemic. There was also interest in learning from past mistakes. So maybe they tried some starter plants and container gardening and they weren't so successful. And then sustainability, people wanted to sustain their diets at home with gardening. So those are a couple of reasons that people were interested in this workshop, and hopefully I answer some of those questions. So some things to think about when you're selecting seeds are your own personal values and things that your family values. So where I'd like to start with is think about what it is that you and your family want to eat. And that will help you pick out the seeds that you want to grow in your garden. So if you have pickle eaters and cucumber eaters in your families, you're definitely going to want to grow some cucumbers. If you like boiled dinner and green beans, those are some things that you're going to want to grow. Just think about what it is that you're actually going to eat. When you go pick your seeds or you order seeds online, it can be really overwhelming because the seed packets are so pretty. There's so many choices, but really think about what you're going to eat. Another consideration is food preservation. So if your goal is to preserve your tomatoes, if you want squashes that last throughout the winter, you're going to want to pick winter squashes. Also, there's certain cucumbers that are better than others for preserving and pickling. So think about that when you're picking out your seeds as well. Another thing to think about is if you're not preserving, are you planning your garden to eat throughout the summer? So if you're doing that, you want to pick seeds that you can harvest at different times throughout. So here are a couple of different ideas. So some like early summer vegetables that you can grow are some radishes and lettuces. Those will be ready about middle to end of June. Some midsummer vegetables that you can grow are summer squashes, beans, cucumbers, zucchinis. And then maybe like the late summer and fall vegetables you want to grow are winter squashes, carrots, beets. Also, another thing that you want to think about is seed saving and sustainability. So I had a number of people that mentioned about they wanted to save seeds. They were worried about sustainability. When you're thinking about seed saving and sustainability, there's certain seeds that you want to pick, and I'll go through that with you in another slide. So the things that I'm going to cover are a few details on how to read seed packets, understanding what determinate and indeterminate seeds are, knowing the difference between hybrid seeds and heirloom seeds, and then also very important are pollinators. So here are pictures of some seed packets. These are the burpee tomato seed. And one of the things that you want to be mindful of is this area right here. This will tell you how much sun that particular plant needs. So this tomato needs full sun, and full sun usually means about 8 to 10 hours of full sun a day. Days to maturity. So once you plant the seed in the ground, it'll be about 74 days before you maybe start seeing your first tomato. If you flip the seed packet over, there's a whole ton of other information. I'm just going to go through a few things with you. So specifically for tomato plants, when you see this word here, indeterminate, it means that this tomato plant is going to grow and produce fruit all season long. So once it reaches maturity, it's going to keep flowering and keep producing tomatoes. You'll also see seed packets that have the word determinate, and that means that it's going to grow to its full maturity, it's going to bloom once and produce all of its tomatoes at once. So think about that, like if you want all your tomatoes to grow at the same time, or you want them to grow throughout the season and you can harvest. So something to think about when you're purchasing your seeds. This will tell you the number of days to germination. So if you're planting right in the ground and it's between 70 and 80 degrees, it's going to take about 7 to 10 days for your seed to start sprouting. When you're growing indoors, it's going to be a little bit longer and a little bit different because usually inside it's not 70 to 80 degrees inside your home. Unless you have a wood fire going, then it's usually 90, 95 degrees, right? And down here, this will tell you when you can plant your container or your seed starter plants in the ground. So in Wisconsin, we're in a colder region. You'll want to plant those in the ground between by the end of May and the early June. And that's because we have a late frost. Sometimes we get surprise frosts in June, so important to pay attention to the weather. But generally, you can plant your seeds in May or June. All right, so here's where we're going to get into the hybrids versus heirloom. So I have two different seed packets here. We have a sweet pepper right stuff hybrid, and then we have the kohlrabi early white Vienna, and this is an heirloom seed. So here's what to know about hybrids. So hybrids are the result of crossbreeding of different plants to produce a new plant with specific characteristics. So what they do is they take characteristics from a bunch of different plants, put them all together in one seed, and hopefully what they come out with are plants that have a really bright color. Maybe they're more crunchy or they have a good taste. They definitely breed so that they're disease and pest resistant. So those are some of the qualities of hybrid plants. Hybrid plants tend to have like vigorous growth. All of your fruits and vegetables that come from a hybrid are going to be very uniform and the same. So you're not going to get like misshapen plants or misshapen fruits and vegetables. They generally produce a lot of vegetables. It's important to note that you can save seeds from hybrids, but what you plant the next season won't look like the tomato that you'll see here. It might be the characteristics of whatever else that was produced with that plant. So with hybrids, you can save the seeds, but you might not get a pepper. You might get something different and it might not taste as good. So you really can't save them. When we get into heirlooms, know that heirlooms might be susceptible to diseases. Their growth is different from hybrids. They need a little bit more care and a little bit more attention. The fruits and vegetables that you get from heirlooms, they're not uniform, not only because they're passed down from generation to generation, but also because they're open to other pollinators. So if your neighbor is growing red tomatoes and you're trying to grow an heirloom yellow tomato, those tomato plants might cross. You'll get yellow plants the first season, but maybe the next season you might have some red tomatoes in there. So those are some of the things with heirloom seeds. Also know that you can save seeds from heirlooms, but the seeds that you grow the next season might not be the true plant that you started with. And that's just because of the cross-pollination that happens. Hold on, I have a couple of people joining. All right. Something else on the bottom of the heirloom seed, and you'll see this on a number of different seed packets, is this little thing right here. And as you can guess, this means that this is good for containers. So if you don't have space for a large garden, you can usually plant these in a pot, and also that this is something that you can start at home as well. So that's what this little pot means. So all kinds of information on these seed packets. So the other thing to think about when you're growing your garden is the pollinators. You don't want to forget about pollinators. Veggies and plants are important, but make sure to include some herbs and some different kinds of flowers because as the statistic shows right here that 75% of the world's major food crops require or benefit from pollination. So if you have some flowers around, you're going to attract the bees, different flies, butterflies, hummingbirds. All of those little critters are good for gardens and they're going to help pollinate your plants and help you have a successful garden. And these are just a few examples of things that you can plant in your garden at home. There's the coneflowers, marigolds, lavenders, bee balms. Also, these plants right here are really good at helping with pests. So if you have a lot of bunnies in your backyards, for some reason they don't like marigolds. So if you plant marigolds around, that's going to help keep the bunnies out. Also, herbs, spearmint, oregano, sweet marjoram, basil, great for cooking, great for drying and saving, but also great for pollinators. If you let them go too long, they'll start to flower, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just brings more pollinators in. Now, onto the seed starting. There's some seed starting tips that I want to go over with you. And these are some really basic things to remember. And the first is the soil. So it's important to use container or potting mixes when you're starting your indoor plants. The reason why is because these are sterile, there's no diseases in them, and it'll help give your plants a good start. I know with the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders going on right now, it's hard for people to get to the store to pick these up. But these two brands here are available at Walmart, and I actually picked some up the other day from there. I would discourage using dirt from your backyard because it has bacteria and diseases in it. It's not as loose and it packs in so it doesn't allow the water to go through as quickly, and it can promote disease. But if that's your only option, you do what you need to do. So that's some ideas for.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Quick question. If our only option is soil from the backyard, I used to have my college roommate was a biology student. She would bake that soil in the oven to get the whatever was in there out. Can that be done? Can they bake their backyard soil to get the?
I've heard that it can be done, but I haven't done that, and I don't have like any tried method for doing that. So if I can find one through extension to share, I will, but generally I try to promote like extension backed resources. But you do what you know and what's been passed along. So if you think that's, an option for you, I don't want to say.
I was just saying in case someone, just in case someone doesn't have potting mixture at home.
Yeah.
I mean, we can still get it, but just in case. Thank you.
Yeah, we do the best that we can. So thank you for that question.
Sure.
All right. So next we're going to move on to space needs. When you plant your seeds, you'll want to place a few in each container. Not all of those seeds will germinate. Hopefully most of them will. Let them grow. And when they get to a certain size, you'll want to start picking some out. So you'll pick out the ones that are maybe smaller or look a little weaker than the other ones. This will help promote good, strong plants. For sunlight, find a good sunny spot in your home. Your starter plants are going to need some sunlight. Also think about moisture. Drainage is so important with your container plants. So make sure that there's places for water to drain out. So making sure like poking little holes on some of like the homemade things that we're going to go through today will help with that. And then water is needed. I think a common mistake that a lot of people make, and I've made myself, is overwatering your container plants. They don't need to be watered every day. You should check them every day. So you can just like put your finger in, and if it feels like it's dry about a ½ inch down, then you'll want to water those, but you don't want to overwater. Temperature is also important. So consistency, you want your plants to be in a space where it's continually between 60 and 70 degrees. That consistent temperature is going to help with seed germination. And most everyone's houses inside, it's between 60 and 70 degrees. Not all seeds that we buy at the store are great for starting. But here is a list of seeds that you can buy that are great for starting in containers and planting outside. There's broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, parsley, peppers, pumpkins. These are what you want to plant inside. Root vegetables like carrots and beets and radishes, generally those aren't started inside. I know by accident that our 4-H club started some. They actually worked out okay, but generally you don't want to. But I'll go through a method with you that you can prep those seeds for starting or for getting ready for your garden. And I'll make sure to email this presentation to all of you so you have this information. If you're thinking about preserving, there's specific cultivars that are going to work best for preserving and canning. And this is just a list of some, and these are from our extension preserving series. There's tomatoes that we recommend for canning and preserving. So here's a few, and these are some common ones that you'll see at Walmart or at True Value. So you want like the Better Boy, Big Beef, Big Boy, Romas. For cucumbers, if you're doing pickles, you're going to want to get pickling cucumbers, gherkins, or dill pickles. Beans that you can preserve are limas, snap peas, green peas, English peas, green beans, and wax beans. And then for roots, root vegetables, carrots and beets are really good for canning. So something to think about. So now we're going to get to the part where we're starting our seeds indoors in at-home containers. I'm going to go through a couple of different methods. We have newspaper containers, we have egg carton containers, soda bottles, and seed tape. And I'm going to stop the share screen really quickly for you so I can demonstrate what some of these look like and how they work. So can everyone see? Yeah. All right. So during non-pandemic times and non-stay-at-home orders, these kinds of things were really easy to come by. These are like the containers that would use for starting your seeds. But I think everyone is thinking about the same thing, about having food and having food throughout the year. And a lot of people are thinking about gardening. So if you go to the store, these are going to be a little bit harder to come by this year because everyone is buying them and thinking about seed starting in gardens. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that you can make from home to start your seeds. And the first one is going to be like the newspaper containers. And all you need for that is your trusty shopper's guide or whatever newspaper you have laying around. And you'll cut that into strips. And you'll see this is a nice little strip right here. You need a spice container or any other kind of round container that you want. I'm using the baking powder because it was a nice size and it was easier for me to wrap. And all you do is you take your newspaper and you wrap it around the container. Take your Scotch tape and tape it to one side, and then you'll wrap the bottom like a present. Just fold it over. Doesn't have to be really neat. And then a piece of tape on the bottom.
Hey, Jennifer?
Yes.
We're having a hard time seeing that because it's out of the screen. So
okay, sorry.
There you go, dear.
Thank you. Pull it off of the baking soda or spice container, and then this is what you get. And you fill it with the soil, drop a couple of seeds in and water it. And this is one really easy, simple stay-at-home container you can make. You could get the whole family at home involved and get a couple of these out really quickly. So really easy, really fun. Drainage is easy because it's paper. The water will just go right through. Important thing to remember is you want to set this on a surface. I put mine in cookie sheets so that the water doesn't drain out all over the place. So if you have an extra cookie sheet, you can set, maybe about 20 or 30 of these on your cookie sheet. The next one that I want to move on to is the egg carton containers. So everyone has some leftover egg carton containers, right? It looks like this. So all I did was cut this in half and cut the little egg cups. You want to save the top, and this can be your lid. Fill it with the potting soil, drop your seeds in and water, and then watch your plants take off and grow. So something really easy and simple that you can do at home. The third one is a little bit more difficult, but this is if you have any empty soda bottles laying around, this makes a really great container as well. So as you can see right here, I have an old Sundrop container, and I just cut around the middle, stuffed some newspaper in the bottom, so that'll help keep the water from draining out. But also when you put it in here, if you have water in the bottom, it'll help draw water up and water your plant. You'll fill this with some potting soil and drop your seeds in. Oh, I have some chats. So this is another easy seed container that you can make at home. I mentioned before about certain vegetables not being great for starting in containers, and carrots are one of those that you don't want to start in seed containers. These are also, if you've planted carrots before, so I'm not the greatest carrot planter, but I have a lot of success with them. So they're so tiny, and you have to space them so far apart. What I do is I'll just, no method, no math to it, no science behind it. I just drop them in and let them grow. So not the greatest, requires a lot of thinning out, and you might waste a lot of seeds. They're really, really, really super tiny seeds. What you can do with these is make seed tape. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And the supplies that you need for that are toilet paper. Maybe we don't want to use that because we know that's a precious commodity right now. But if you look around your house and you find like some gift wrap or tissue paper left over from Christmas or from birthdays, that makes some really great seed tape. So here is some tissue paper or some gift wrap left over from Christmas. What you'll want to do is cut a strip like this. You'll fold it in half, and then drop your seeds in every couple of inches. You want to put like maybe 3 or 4 seeds in. Using super glue, you'll glue them in. And then what you have at the end is a seed tape that looks like this. So I don't know how close you can see, but there's little seeds in each and they're spaced out so that when you plant them, they're perfectly spaced apart, and it helps with some of the weeding and the pulling of plants that you'll need to do. Make sure that you write what variety it is. So I have these carrots, short and sweet. When it's time to plant these, you can plant this in the ground because toilet paper and tissue paper are so thin, the seeds are going to germinate and go right through this. We tried it with our high school immersion club with radishes. They did about 2 rows, 20 feet long, and it was really successful. And we had a ton of radishes that summer. So it's a method that works. And then let's see, I'll go back to screen sharing. Oh, one more thing before I go back to screen sharing. Save your seed packets because there's so much information. When it's time to plant in the ground, it's going to tell you how to plant in the ground. Also, you want to be organized. So when you're planting, you want to label the containers that you're using. So some things I found laying around the house were some fast food straws. I found some Post-it notes laying around. And I made little markers for my plants. So all I did was cut up a straw. And if you look close, this is a tomato Rutgers. And what I would do is I would set this in the seed container like this so that I know which plant that is growing in the seed container. So something easy. You can use toothpicks, you can use popsicle sticks, whatever it is that you find laying around the house, and that'll keep your plants and seeds organized.
Hey, Jennifer, me again. I'm looking at you. Hi. Hey, some of the people are having problems with the audio. Do you have any suggestions for them? So they're able to see you, but their computers aren't supporting their audio.
Okay, if you're having issues with audio, make sure to shut down everything else that's on your computer except for the Zoom. Because there's a lot of people using internet now, sometimes the bandwidth isn't enough to support both video and sound. So if you have like an email open or some other things open on your laptop, shut those down and that'll help with the sound.
Okay, thank you for the suggestion. They're trying to get in, and
okay,
Sabina's connecting now. So. Hey, another question before we go on.
Yes.
I do the garden club at MIMS, and so does Sabina. So would it be okay, you're going to send us this whole presentation, or the are we going to be getting your presentation, or do I have permission to use the recording for class purpose for the students?
You should be able to use the recording. I'll send you the material as well, and then I'm planning to do like a 1-page like kind of newsletter kind of thing to send out to everybody.
Perfect.
As well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem at all.
There we go. I'm gonna mute again.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the presentation. Just for to tie up a couple of things here and things to keep in mind. So some final tips and some things to keep in mind. If you have to go out shopping for any of these materials, make sure that you make a list before you go. We want you to spend as little time as possible in the stores. And if you have a list with you, that's going to help cut down your time in the stores. Also, save your seed packets because you're going to plant those in the ground, and you're going to need that information to tell you how deep to plant those plants. Also, reminder to water regularly, but not too much. Check your plants, and if they feel dry to about like a fingertip, half of your fingertip down, you're going to want to water those. Don't water every day. Every other day or every couple of days is just fine. Also, thin your plants out so that they don't crowd. You can see here that these plants have been thinned out, and you can see how robust they are and that they're reaching for the sun. Also be patient. So the seed packet might say 7 to 10 days. It might take a little bit longer because it's not as warm as our house is, as some of the seeds and plants would like, but they'll grow. So just be patient and check on them every day and observe and see what happens. Also, before planting in the ground, you're going to want to harden your plants off. And if you haven't heard of that before, it's something that I learned in my growing and garden trials. So your plants that you grow inside are super pampered. They're very spoiled. They're not exposed to the wind or to the rain or anything. So they're really sensitive and they're kind of like little baby plants. If you take your plants from inside and plant them in your garden the next day, they're not going to survive because they're not strong enough. So what you want to do is harden those off. So maybe a week before you plant in the ground, take your plants outside and set them outside for an hour a day. The next day, go for 2 hours. The next day, 3 hours. And by the end of the week, if you can leave your plants outside for 10 hours, that's going to give them the strength and the robustness that they need to survive in the ground. So make sure that you harden your plants off. Also, a general rule is to plant after Memorial Day weekend. We all know we have crazy weather here in Wisconsin, and sometimes it can be winter into May. Sometimes we get really late frosts. So general rule of thumb is to wait until after Memorial Day. Usually we can be assured that there's not going to be any frost or anything that's going to kill our plants. I would also say just watch the weather. Also because we have crazy weather in Wisconsin, sometimes summer starts really early. So if you're watching the weather and like a week before Memorial Day, it shows like really warm temperatures for the next couple of days or even into like a week and a half, you can go ahead and plant your plants outside. But for me, I'm pretty religious about waiting until after Memorial Day. So just some tips. And I think that is all that I have. I hope that this was helpful for you. I know I went through a lot of information really quickly. But I'm going to open up the chat, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to work through and answer those with you. Let's see. If you still have unused potting soil from last year, is that still good? I left it outside by my gardening table. That soil should be okay. So I would go ahead and use that.
I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This will be very helpful.
Had a lot of fun putting it together.
Yeah, my question is, when we can get back to school, it'd be nice to have you come on up to MIMS and maybe do some kind of presentation for the kids for the gardening club. That would be great.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be happy to.
Because I'd like to, well, I'm anxious to get back. I mean, hard to be at home. And I know for the kids too. So I might be submitting your video also to our Facebook. If that's okay.
Sure. I'll make sure to, once I figure it out, I'll make sure to get a copy to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And let's see, I have another question. Oh, just a thank you. So what my next steps are is I'll make sure to get a copy of this to you so you have the information. I'll put together a one-page so you can just look at everything on one page if you like. And then I'll probably have a survey for you to follow up with. If everyone liked this, then maybe I can do another one of these in 2 weeks about planning your outdoor garden and some alternative gardens. If you don't have the backyard space, there's things you can do with containers. So that's it. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.